The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was filled with voices. Representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in their floating pods, arguing about trade routes and mining rights. The crystal ceiling above them showed the stars beyond, each one representing countless lives under council rule. In the center of it all stood Elder Zixthara. Her body was made of living crystal that had grown over 800 years. She was older than most civilizations in this room. Light moved through her like blood, pulsing with memories that stretched back to when this galaxy was young and wild. She had asked to speak today. The council had given her time because she was ancient and respected. But they were not really listening. They never did anymore. "I come before you with a warning," Zixthara said. Her voice echoed through the hall like singing glass. "You do not understand the humans." Ambassador Vexilon laughed from his pod. He was tall and green with 4 arms that moved like snakes. His people, the hegemony, controlled most of the galaxy's trade. The humans? Those small creatures who live on 20 worlds? Elder, they are useful servants, nothing more. Other voices joined his laughter. The human territory was tiny compared to other empires. Their ships were simple. Their weapons were basic. They had been in space for less than 1,000 years, while some council members had ruled the stars for millions. "I was there when they first came to us," Zixthara continued, ignoring the noise. 847 years ago. They arrived in broken ships, fleeing from something terrible. She remembered that day clearly. The human ships had been damaged and small. Their technology was primitive by galactic standards. But there was something in their eyes that made her crystal body grow cold. It was not fear. It was not sadness. It was something much more dangerous. "They told us their world was destroyed," she said. "They did not cry or beg. They simply asked for a place to rebuild. They offered to work, to trade, to follow our laws. We thought they were weak." "Because they are weak," said Senator Clix from the Vexkari delegation. His species looked like giant insects with golden shells. "They have never fought back, not once. They accept every trade deal we offer, no matter how unfair. They give us whatever we ask for." Zixthara's light grew dimmer. "You mistake patience for weakness. You mistake planning for surrender." She had watched the humans for centuries. Other species saw their quiet acceptance and thought it meant submission. They did not see what she saw. Humans remembered everything. Every broken promise. Every unfair deal. Every life lost to council greed. "They keep records," she said, "of everything. Every trade agreement you have broken. Every colony you have taken from them. Every human who has disappeared in your territory. So what?" Vexilon waved one of his arms. "Record-keeping is not warfare. They write down their complaints while we take their resources. Words do not stop plasma cannons." But Zixthara remembered the human diplomat who had visited her world 50 years ago. He was a small man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had come to discuss mining rights on a human asteroid field. During their talks, he had mentioned, very casually, the names of 17 Keth-Ari citizens who had been kidnapped by space pirates. 200 years before her birth date, he should not have known those names. No one remembered pirates from so long ago. But humans did. They remembered everything. "You think they are alone," she said to the council. "You see their 20 worlds and think that is all of them. But what if you are wrong? What if there are more humans than you know? What if they have been hiding, building, preparing?" The laughter grew louder now. The idea seemed impossible to the council members. How could a species hide entire worlds? How could they build fleets in secret? The galaxy had been mapped for thousands of years. "Even if they had secret fleets," said Admiral Vekmar from his military pod, "they are still just humans. We have weapons that can crack planets. We have shields that can stop stars. What could they possibly do to us?" Zixthara felt very old suddenly. She had lived through 12 galactic wars. She had seen empires rise and fall like waves on a shore. She knew that the greatest danger never came from the strongest enemy. It came from the one you ignored. I have spoken to humans across the centuries, she said. They are not like us. When we are wronged, we seek justice through courts and laws. When we are betrayed, we demand apologies and compensation. But humans do not excuse. She paused, letting those words sink in. They do not forget a debt. They do not forgive a betrayal. They do not excuse those who harm their children or steal their homes. They simply wait until they are strong enough to balance the scales. Threats now, Elder? Vexilon's voice was mocking. Should we tremble before human anger? Zixthara looked at him with eyes that had seen the birth and death of stars. You should tremble before human patience. You have mistaken their restraint for cowardice. You have taken their resources and called it trade. You have enslaved their people and called it law. You have murdered their children and called it necessity. She turned to address the entire council, her voice growing stronger. And through it all, they have smiled and nodded and agreed to your terms. But they remember. They catalog every crime, every broken promise, every act of cruelty. And when they decide the ledger must be balanced, the hall had grown quiet now. Even the mockers were listening. They don't excuse, she finished. They don't negotiate with those who have shown their true nature. They don't warn their enemies or offer second chances. They simply act with the cold precision of mathematics. Every action creates an equal and opposite reaction. For a moment, silence filled the great hall. Then Vexilon's laughter broke it like glass. Thank you for the fairy tale, Elder. But we rule this galaxy through strength, not fear of bedtime stories. The humans will serve us as they always have, or they will be removed like any other pest. The council voted to dismiss the Elder's concerns. Trade with human space would continue as before. Human worlds would provide resources and labor as required. Human complaints would be filed and ignored as always. As Zixthara left the hall, she whispered a prayer to the ancient gods of her people. She prayed that she was wrong about the humans. But in her crystal heart, she knew she was right. The humans were coming. And when they arrived, there would be no mercy, no negotiation, no second chances. There would only be the settling of accounts. Sarah Chung looked like any other clerk in the Galactic Trade Commission building. She was small and quiet, with dark hair pulled back in a simple style. Every day she came to work early, filed reports carefully, and left without making trouble. Her supervisors liked her because she never complained and always finished her tasks. They did not know that Sarah remembered everything. Her office was on the 42nd floor, overlooking the busy streets of New Geneva Station. Through her window, she could see ships from across the galaxy, loading and unloading cargo. Trade was the lifeblood of the council, and everything had to be recorded, filed, and stored. That was Sarah's job. She recorded trade agreements between human colonies and other species. She filed reports about mining rights and shipping routes. She stored data about labor contracts and resource extraction permits. What her alien supervisors did not understand was that every file told a story. And those stories, when put together, painted a picture of systematic theft and betrayal. Today's report came from Harmony Colony, a small human settlement near the edge of council space. 6 months ago, the colony had discovered a rich deposit of crystalline energy cores beneath their farmland. The humans had been excited. The crystals could power their growing settlement for generations. But when they filed their discovery with the Trade Commission, things changed quickly. Within weeks, the hegemony had claimed the land under an old territorial law. The human families who had farmed there for decades were forced to leave. Now hegemony workers mined the crystals while the humans worked in processing plants for minimal wages. Sarah typed the official report. Harmony Colony mining operation proceeding according to legal guidelines. Human workers report satisfaction with new employment opportunities. Then she opened another file, one that her supervisors never saw. In this file, she wrote the truth. Hegemony stole Harmony colony lands using fabricated legal claims. 47 human families displaced. Colony unable to achieve energy independence as planned. Estimated theft value, 2.3 billion credits. She had been keeping these hidden files for 20 years. Every broken contract, every stolen resource, every human life lost to council greed. The pattern was always the same. Humans would find something valuable or build something useful. Then other species would find ways to take it. Sometimes they used legal tricks. Sometimes they claimed security concerns. Sometimes they simply took what they wanted and dared humans to complain. And humans never did complain. Not officially, but Sarah knew the truth. Every human settlement had someone like her. Someone who remembered. Someone who kept track. Her computer chimed with a new message. This one came from Dr. Marcus Webb on distant Kepler station. His daughter had been selected for an educational exchange program with the Vexkari. It was considered an honor. Very few human children were chosen for such programs. Sarah's blood grew cold as she read the message. She opened her hidden files and searched for references to Vexkari educational programs. The results made her sick. Over the past 50 years, 1,247 human children had been selected for these programs. 0 had returned home. Official reports claimed the children loved their new lives and chose to stay with their host families. But Sarah had other information. Secret messages from human parents. Desperate inquiries from human authorities. Medical reports that never made sense. The Vexkari were not educating human children. They were harvesting them. Sarah typed another hidden report. Dr. Webb's daughter, taken by Vexkari, under education pretense. Total missing children now 1,248. Evidence suggests biological experimentation. Council authorities refuse all inquiries. She sent a coded message to Dr. Webb, warning him. She also sent copies of her files to other human record keepers across the galaxy. The truth would spread, quietly and carefully, through human space. Her computer chimed again. This message was from New Shanghai Colony. The Getheri had just canceled their food shipment contracts without warning. The colony's children would not have enough to eat this winter. Sarah checked her files. The Getheri had been canceling human contracts for months. Not because they had better customers, but because they wanted to force humans to accept lower prices. It was economic warfare disguised as business. Another message arrived. From Far Haven Station. The Zephyrian military had just seized the station's communication array. They claimed it was needed for galactic security. The real reason was to prevent humans from coordinating their responses to these attacks. More messages came throughout the day. From mining worlds and farming colonies. From research stations and trade outposts. The same pattern repeated everywhere. Find excuse, take resource. Blame humans for not understanding galactic law. By evening, Sarah had documented 17 new crimes against human settlements. She added them to her files and sent coded summaries across human space. Then she did something different. She opened a special file she had created years ago but never used. This file contained one simple message, ready to send to every human settlement in the galaxy. Her finger hovered over the send button. Once this message went out, there would be no going back. The long pretense of cooperation would be over. A final message arrived on her screen. This one made her decision easy. The human diplomatic mission to Council Prime had been attacked. All 17 delegates were dead. Security footage showed hegemony soldiers opening fire during a peaceful negotiation session. The official report blamed the humans for aggressive behavior and threatening language. Sarah recognized one of the names on the casualty list. Ambassador Jennifer Park. She had been Sarah's friend at the academy 30 years ago. A kind woman who believed in peace and cooperation between species. Now she was dead. Murdered while carrying a flag of truce. Sarah pressed the send button. The message was simple. The ledger is full. Across human space, other record keepers received the signal. On mining worlds and farming colonies, in hidden research stations and secret shipyards, humans read the message and understood. They had tried patience. They had tried cooperation. They had tried following council law and accepting council justice. No more. In deep space, where no council sensors could reach, massive ships began to power up their engines. These ships had been built in secret over centuries, using resources that humans had supposedly given to other species. On hidden worlds that did not appear on any galactic map, human armies prepared for war. These soldiers had trained their entire lives for this moment. They knew the names of every human child taken by the Vexkari. They remembered every broken promise, every stolen world, every life lost to council greed. The humans were done excusing. They were done forgiving. They were done pretending that words could solve what violence had created. It was time to balance the books. Sarah closed her files and prepared to leave her office for the last time. Tomorrow, the Galactic Trade Commission would find her desk empty. They would wonder where their quiet, efficient clerk had gone. They would learn soon enough. The age of human patience was ending. The age of human justice was about to begin. And when it came, there would be no mercy for those who had shown none. Admiral Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the Retribution's edge, watching data streams flow across the main display. Numbers filled the screens in endless columns. Ship counts, weapon inventories, troop deployments, resource calculations. Each number represented years of careful planning and secret preparation. The ship itself was proof of human ingenuity. From the outside, it looked like a simple cargo hauler, the kind that carried grain between farming worlds. But beneath its plain exterior lay weapons that could crack moons and shields that could deflect star fire. It was one of 3,000 such vessels, hidden throughout human space for over 2 centuries. Webb was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. He had spent 40 years in the official human defense force, rising through the ranks while keeping his real allegiances secret. To the council, he was just another human officer, competent but unremarkable. They had no idea he commanded the largest fleet in galactic history. The Admiral called his aide, Captain Sarah Chun. She had left her clerk position 3 days ago and taken her true rank. The final archive compilation is ready for your review. Webb nodded. The archive was humanity's true weapon, more dangerous than any gun or bomb. For centuries, humans had recorded every crime committed against them. Every broken treaty, every stolen resource, every murdered child. The archive contained evidence that would shock the galaxy, if anyone lived to see it. "Show me the summary," Webb said. The main screen changed, displaying a map of human space. But this was not the human space the council knew about. Instead of 20 worlds, the map showed over 300. Hidden colonies spread across dark space between the stars. Secret research stations built inside asteroids. Massive industrial complexes that had been producing weapons for generations. Phase 1 colonies, Chen explained, highlighting the 20 worlds the council knew about. These were always meant to be visible. They served as our public face while the real work happened elsewhere. Webb studied the map. Humanity's expansion had been careful and methodical. They never built anything where council sensors might find it. They used asteroid fields and gas clouds for cover. They chose systems that other species considered worthless or dangerous. Phase 2 colonies? Webb asked. Chun highlighted another cluster of worlds, established between years 50 and 150 of human expansion. These are our primary industrial bases. Shipyards, weapons factories, training facilities. Population, approximately 200 million humans who have never had contact with council space. Webb felt pride swell in his chest. While the council had been congratulating themselves on keeping humans weak, humanity had been building an empire in the shadows. Children had been born and raised on worlds that did not appear on any galactic map. They had learned engineering and warfare and hatred for the species that had driven their ancestors from their homes. Phase 3? Webb asked. Years 150 to 300, Chung continued. Deep space exploration and settlement. We found interesting things in the dark between galaxies. The map expanded, showing human settlements in places that should have been empty void. Ancient alien ruins that held technology beyond Council understanding. Derelict ships from species that had died out before the current galactic civilization began. Resources that existed nowhere else in known space. And Phase 4? Chen's smile was cold. Years 300 to present. Integration and preparation. Every phase, one human has at least one relative in the hidden colonies. Every trade deal with Council species included technology transfers that they didn't understand. Every research project they allowed us to participate in gave us access to their weaknesses. Webb understood. For centuries, humans had played the role of junior partners in galactic civilization. They had seemed grateful for scraps from the Council's table. But every scrap had been studied, reverse-engineered, and improved upon. Human scientists had learned to build better weapons by studying Council designs. Human strategists had mapped every major military installation by serving as laborers and clerks. Fleet status? Webb asked. 3,000 heavy cruisers like this one, Chun reported. Each one capable of matching a Council battleship. 12,000 destroyers. 40,000 fighters. All equipped with stealth technology that makes them invisible to Council sensors. Webb nodded. The numbers were impressive, but numbers alone would not win this war. Ground forces? 20 million soldiers in the assault corps. Each one trained from childhood for specific missions against specific targets. They know the layouts of enemy bases better than the aliens who built them. They speak Council languages without accent. Many have been working inside enemy territory for years. That was the key to human strategy. While Council species had grown comfortable ruling through strength, humans had learned to rule through knowledge. Every hegemony military base had human janitors who observed patrol patterns. Every Vexkari research lab had human technicians who understood their experiments. Every Council meeting had human translators who reported back to the archive. Show me the target list, Webb ordered. The display changed again, showing a tactical overview of Council space. Red dots marked high-priority targets, military bases, research facilities, government centers. Each dot was accompanied by detailed intelligence gathered over decades of patient observation. Phase 1 targets, Chun explained. Military leadership and command infrastructure. Every Council fleet commander, every strategic planning center, every communication hub. We eliminate their ability to coordinate resistance. Phase 2? Economic targets. The resource extraction facilities they stole from us. The trade routes that carry wealth built on human suffering. The banking centers that profit from our oppression. Webb studied the list. Every target had been chosen with surgical precision. This would not be random destruction or mindless revenge. It would be justice delivered with mathematical exactness. Phase 3 targets? Chun's voice grew quieter. Personal targets. The specific individuals responsible for specific crimes. The hegemony officials who ordered the Harmony colony theft. The Vexkari scientists who experimented on our children. The Council members who voted to ignore evidence of our suffering. Webb understood. This was what made humans different from other species. When Cathari went to war, they fought armies. When Zephyrians conquered worlds, they killed soldiers. But when humans sought justice, they remembered names and faces and individual crimes. Timeline? Webb asked. Strike fleets are in position throughout Council space. On your order, we can hit all Phase 1 targets within 6 hours. Phase 2 targets will be eliminated within 48 hours. Phase 3 targets. Those will take longer. Some of them have hidden very well. Webb looked at the final piece of the puzzle, casualty estimates. The council species had a combined population of over 1 trillion beings. When this war was over, that number would be much smaller. "Admiral," Chum said softly, "Dr. Webb sends his regards." His daughter was recovered from the Vex-Kari facility on Nexus Prime. She recover with time. Webb closed his eyes. Dr. Webb was his brother, a gentle scientist who had believed in peaceful cooperation until his daughter was taken. The girl had been found in a Vex-Kari laboratory, subjected to experiments that would have killed most species. She would live, but she would never be the same. One more name for the ledger. One more crime that required payment. "Send the signal," Webb ordered. "All fleets, all units, all agents. Execute, order archive." Across human space, the message spread at the speed of light. In hidden shipyards, massive doors opened to reveal fleets that defied galactic law. On secret worlds, soldiers boarded transport ships bound for Council space. In Council territory itself, human agents began activating weapons and explosives that had been hidden for decades. The war would not last long. When one side had been preparing for centuries, while the other side did not even know a war was coming, the outcome was never in doubt. But Webb felt no joy in the coming victory. Too much had been lost. Too many children had disappeared. Too many worlds had been stolen. Too many promises had been broken. Humans did not excuse. They did not forget. And now, finally, they would not have to pretend to forgive. The age of human patience was over. The age of human justice had begun. Ambassador Vexilon was reviewing trade reports when the first explosions lit up the sky above Hegemony Prime. Through his office window, he watched in confusion as pillars of fire erupted from the orbital defense platforms that had protected his homeworld for 1,000 years. The platforms should have been impossible to destroy. They were equipped with shields that could stop asteroid impacts and weapons that could crack battle cruisers. But they were falling like burned leaves, one after another, their wreckage spinning into the planet's atmosphere. "Sir." His aide burst into the office, his green skin pale with terror. "The fleet is under attack." Vexilon activated his wall display, calling up tactical readings from across the system. What he saw made no sense. The Hegemony Third Fleet, one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy, was being destroyed by ships that appeared from nowhere. The human vessels looked like simple cargo haulers, but they moved like fighters and hit like dreadnoughts. Their weapons cut through hegemony shields as if they were made of paper. Their armor absorbed plasma fire that should have vaporized them. Where did they come from? Vexilon demanded that his aide check the sensor logs with shaking hands. "Unknown, sir. They just appeared. Our sensors show nothing until the moment they open fire." Vexilon had lived through 3 galactic wars. He had seen fleets clash among the stars and worlds burn under orbital bombardment. But he had never seen anything like this. The humans were not fighting like any species he knew. They were not trying to conquer territory or capture resources. They were eliminating specific targets with surgical precision. On the display, he watched human ships bypass civilian vessels to strike military targets. They ignored the commercial space stations that generated wealth for the hegemony. Instead, they focused on command centers, communication arrays, and weapon manufacturing plants. "Get me Admiral Lekmer," Vexilon ordered. "Sir," his aide whispered. "Admiral Lekmer is dead. His flagship was destroyed 17 minutes ago. Admiral Zexkari is dead. Admiral Kexthani is dead. All fleet commanders in this sector are confirmed killed in action." Vexilon felt cold terror creep up his spine. The humans were not just attacking randomly. They knew exactly where each admiral would be. They knew the command codes, the tactical frequencies, the security protocols. His communication system activated, showing an incoming message from the Hegemony High Command. But instead of Hegemony officers, the screen showed a human woman in a simple gray uniform. "Ambassador Vexilon," she said calmly. "My name is Sarah Chun. acting admiral of the human fleet currently destroying your military infrastructure. Vexilon recognized her. She had been a clerk in the Trade Commission building. He had seen her filing reports and serving coffee to important visitors. She had been invisible, meaningless. Beneath notice. Now she commanded ships that were reducing his civilization to ash and ruin. "What do you want?" Vexilon asked. "Justice," Chum replied. "For 800 years your people have stolen from us, enslaved us, and murdered our children. Today, we collect payment." On the tactical display, Vexilon watched human forces strike across hegemony space. Not just his homeworld, but dozens of systems simultaneously. Major fleet bases that had taken centuries to build were being destroyed in minutes. "This is impossible," he said. "You don't have this many ships. Our intelligence reports show only a few dozen human vessels in your entire space." Chun's smile was cold as winter space. "Your intelligence reports show what we wanted them to show. Did you think we would trust our enemies with accurate information about our capabilities?" The truth hit Vexilon like a physical blow. For centuries, the hegemony had based their strategy on the assumption that humans were weak and few. They had planned their conquests around human limitations that had never existed. "How many ships do you have?" He whispered. "Enough," Chun said. "More than enough to finish what you started." On the display, new icons appeared as human ships emerged from hyperspace around other Council worlds. The Vexkari homeworld was under attack. So were the major Kethari industrial centers and the Zephyrian military academies. But these were not random strikes. Each attack was precisely calibrated. The humans were not trying to commit genocide or conquer territory. They were balancing accounts. "The Harmony Colony theft," Chun continued, reading from a list. "Value: 2.3 billion credits plus emotional damages for 47 displaced families. Payment: destruction of hegemony mining platform. 7 and all associated infrastructure." Vexilon watched on the tactical display as the mining platform he had built with stolen human resources exploded in a ball of fire. "The Kepler Station massacre?" Chun continued. "Value: 17 innocent lives plus diplomatic damages. Payment: Admiral Vekmer and his entire command staff." On another screen, Vexilon saw footage of the Admiral's flagship being boarded by human soldiers. The boarding action lasted less than 5 minutes. When it was over, every hegemony officer was dead, but the human crew was allowed to escape in lifeboats. "You're monsters," Vexilon gasped. Chun's expression did not change. "We learned from the best. Every tactic we use, we learn from watching you. Every strategy we employ was first used against us. The only difference is that we keep better records." Across the galaxy, the pattern repeated itself. Council military forces found themselves fighting enemies who knew their every weakness and planned for their every move. Human agents who had worked inside alien governments for decades revealed themselves, sabotaging critical systems at the worst possible moments. The Vexkari, breeding worlds where they had experimented on human children, burned under orbital bombardment. The Cathari trade stations that had cheated human merchants for generations found themselves cut off from all supply lines. The Zephyrian military academies that had trained officers to oppress lesser species were reduced to rubble. But the humans did not stop there. They had lists. Every council official who had voted to ignore human suffering found human soldiers at their door. Every scientist who had experimented on human subjects faced trial by human judges. Every trader who had broken contracts with human colonies discovered that their accounts had been emptied and their assets seized. "You wanted to know what human justice looks like," Chun told Vexilon as his world burned around him. "It looks like this. Precise, complete, inescapable." Vexilon's ship shook as human forces destroyed the last of the orbital defenses. Through his window, he could see transport ships landing in the capital city. Human soldiers were disembarking with weapons that gleamed like captured starlight. "What happens now?" he asked. Now you face trial, Chun said. You will answer for every crime you have committed against our people. Every theft will be catalogued. Every murder will be remembered. Every broken promise will be weighed in the balance. And if we resist? Chun's smile grew colder. Resistance assumes you have something left to resist with. Check your tactical displays, Ambassador. Count your remaining ships. Calculate your odds of victory. Vexilon looked at the strategic overview. Red warning lights covered every screen. In 6 hours of fighting, the hegemony had lost 80% of their fleet and 90% of their military leadership. Similar reports were coming in from across Council space. The war was already over. It had ended before most Council species even knew it had begun. Humans don't excuse, Chun continued. We don't forget. And we don't negotiate with those who have shown their true nature. You had 800 years to learn this lesson. Today, class is over. The transmission ended, leaving Vexilon alone with his terror. Outside his window, human ships moved through the wreckage of his civilization like sharks through blood-dark water. He thought about the Elder's warning, delivered in the Council chambers just months ago. Zixthara had tried to tell them. She had seen the truth that they had all refused to acknowledge. Humans were not weak. They were not submissive. They were patient. And now their patience had run out. The galaxy would never be the same. Elder Zixthara walked through the ruins of the Galactic Council chambers, her crystal feet clicking softly on the broken stone. 2 years had passed since the human fleets had emerged from dark space to remake the galaxy. 2 years since her warning had proved prophetic. The Great Hall where she had once tried to warn. The Council was different now. The floating pods where arrogant ambassadors had laughed at human weakness lay shattered on the floor. The crystal ceiling that had showed the stars still functioned, but the stars themselves had changed. Many of the lights that had once represented thriving civilizations were now dim or dark entirely. The hegemony homeworlds were empty, their populations extinct. The Vexkari breeding centers were silent graveyards. The Zephyrian military academies were monuments to the dead, but not all the lights were gone. Some burned brighter than before. The walls of the chamber had been transformed into something the Council builders never intended, a memorial. Thousands of names covered every surface, etched in flowing script that caught the starlight. Each name represented a human life lost to Council cruelty. Children who had disappeared into alien experiments. Colonists who had been enslaved or displaced. Diplomats who had been murdered under flags of truce. Zixthara paused before one section of the wall. These names were smaller, arranged in careful columns with dates beside them. As she read, she realized what she was seeing. The human children taken by the Vexkari educational programs. All 1,248 of them, listed with their birth dates and the dates they had disappeared. They were the first priority, said a quiet voice behind her. Zixthara turned to see a human woman approaching. She was young, perhaps 30 years old, with kind eyes that held depths of old pain. She wore a simple gray uniform without rank markings or decorations. Administrator Chun, Zixthara said. Recognizing the woman who now governed what remained of galactic civilization, Sarah Chen nodded politely. Elder, thank you for coming. I was not certain you would want to see me, Zixthara admitted. My species was neutral during your war of liberation. We did not help you, though we knew what was happening. Neutrality is not a crime, Chun replied. Willful ignorance can be, but you tried to warn the Council. You spoke truth when others preferred comfortable lies. They walked together through the memorial chamber. Chun paused occasionally to touch a name on the wall, her fingers tracing letters with reverent care. Were you able to save any of them? Zixthara asked, gesturing toward the children's names. Chun's expression grew pained. 43. We found them in the deep labs, the places where the Vexkari conducted their worst experiments. They were damaged, but they are healing. We have good doctors and time. Zixthara felt her crystal body grow cold. And the rest? We gave them the justice we could. Every Vexkari scientist who participated in the programs was identified and tried. Every official who authorized the kidnappings was held accountable. Every politician who voted to continue the programs paid the price. That was the human way. Zixthara had learned. Not random slaughter or conquest for its own sake, but precise justice delivered with mathematical certainty. Every crime had been catalogued. Every perpetrator had been identified. Every punishment had been calibrated to match the offense. The galaxy calls it genocide, Zixthara said carefully. Chum stopped walking and turned to face her. 3 species extinct, 17 others reduced to remnant populations, and you call it genocide. Yet when those same species systematically oppressed, enslaved, and murdered humans for 8 centuries, the galaxy called it law and order. Zixthara could not argue with that logic. She had watched the Council ignore evidence of human suffering for generations. She had seen them dismiss complaints and silence protests. They had created the conditions that made this reckoning inevitable. What happens now? She asked. Chen gestured toward a balcony that overlooked the rebuilt city below. Where once Council species had strutted in their arrogance, now a dozen different civilizations worked together in apparent harmony. The galaxy learns a new way, Chen said. Species that protected or aided humans during the Dark Years governed themselves freely. The Altarian Republic expanded their territory threefold. The Kepler Federation gained access to trade routes they had been denied for millennia. The crystalline communes received the resources they needed to rebuild their shattered worlds. And the others? Species that remain neutral face restrictions but retain their autonomy. Reduced military capacity, monitored trade agreements, human observers in their governments. But they live. They prosper within limits. And those who actively participated in our oppression? Chun's voice became harder. They are extinct. We don't excuse. We don't forgive. And we don't allow those who have shown their true nature to threaten innocence ever again. It was a harsh justice, but Zixthara understood the logic. Humans had tried peace and cooperation for 8 centuries. They had accepted broken treaties and stolen resources and murdered children. They had learned that some species could not be trusted to honor agreements or respect the rights of others. You offer me a position in this new order, Zixthara said. Why? Because the galaxy needs voices of wisdom, Chung replied. You tried to warn them. You spoke truth when it was unpopular. You have lived long enough to remember when things were different. They walked to the center of the memorial chamber, where a simple chair sat facing the wall of names. It was made of the same crystal as Zixthara's body, shaped by artisans who understood her people's aesthetic preferences. What would my role be? Zixthara asked. Speaker for the Remnant Council species. Advisor on matters of interspecies relations. Guardian of memory, to ensure that the lessons of this age are not forgotten. Zixthara considered the offer. She was old, even by the standards of her long-lived people. She had seen empires rise and fall, watched species bloom and wither, observed the great cycles of history, turn like stellar formations. But she had never seen anything like what humans had accomplished. In 2 years, they had reshaped galactic civilization completely. Not through conquest or enslavement, but through the systematic application of justice. There are those who call humans monsters, she said. There are, Chun agreed. Usually the same voices that called us weak when we suffered in silence. How do you answer such accusations? Chun smiled sadly. We don't. Our actions speak for themselves. The slave camps are empty. The children are safe. The strong no longer prey upon the weak without consequence. If that makes us monsters, then the galaxy needed monsters. Zixthara looked around the memorial chamber, reading the names of the dead and thinking about the future. The old galaxy had been built on the assumption that might made right, that the strong could do whatever they pleased to the weak. Humans had proven that assumption wrong. They had shown that patience was not weakness, that memory was a weapon, and that justice, however long delayed, would eventually come. "I accept your offer," she said finally. Chun nodded. "There is one condition. You must understand that this new order is not negotiable. Species that threaten the peace, that prey upon the innocent, that break their word once given, will face the same fate as the hegemony and the Vexkari. We are not interested in second chances or mercy for the merciless." "I understand," Sikthar said. "Humans don't excuse." "No," Chun agreed. "We don't, and we never will." As they spoke, reports arrived from the edges of known space. Human exploration fleets had made contact with civilizations beyond the old galactic borders. New species, untouched by council corruption, were being invited to join the new order. The message the humans carried was simple. They came in peace. They offered partnership and protection. They would share knowledge and resources freely with those who proved trustworthy. But every first contact included the same warning. Humans remembered everything. They did not forget debts or forgive betrayals. They did not forgive betrayals. They did not excuse those who harmed the innocent. The galaxy was learning to understand what Elder Zixthara had tried to tell them years ago. Humans were not weak. They were not submissive. They were patient, methodical, and absolutely unforgiving to those who crossed them. And in this new galaxy they had built from the ashes of the old, that was enough to keep the peace. The age of predators was over. The age of justice had begun, and it would endure for as long as humans remembered the names on these walls.